Part 55. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 541. Heh, you think I don't know what you want to do? Don't worry, as long as I'm here, I will never give you a chance to improve Sue's good impression. Then, after a game, the relationship between the two became even more tense. As for using this method to determine the outcome, both of them had 1 win and 2 losses. The last sentence allowed Suliang to win. There was no way to win or lose. But right now, an inexplicable aura suddenly rose into the sky, soaring into the sky. This is the direction of the demon-suppressing dragon vein. 11 Hang immediately identified the direction and source of this breath. Abyss. Ji Hongchen's expression became solemn, and she could clearly sense the characteristics of the abyss from this aura. Could it be that the foreign passage has been opened again? Suliang raised his eyebrows and couldn't sit still anymore. Let's go over and have a look. Such a huge movement could be heard clearly throughout almost the entire holy mountain. This moment, countless people walked out of their homes and looked in the direction of the demon-suppressing dragon vein in confusion, not knowing what was going on. And at Suliang's home, Suliang and others put aside their own matters at the same time, walked out of the room, and without saying a word, rushed towards the direction of the demon-suppressing dragon vein. In the entire Holy Land, there are definitely not many people who know about the changes in the demon-suppressing dragon vein. Apart from those in the Holy Land, only Suliang and others were left. Therefore, along the way, Suliang and others were all alone, and no one else was found. Along the way, Suliang's brows were always furrowed. The aura wave just now was so strong, I'm afraid the foreign channel has really opened. But didn't the Queen of the Abyss say she would take him to the Abyss before? But why, just after the time came, the Abyss came directly? You promised to take me to the Abyss. Why do you have to fight before going? Volume 1 # Chapter 488 The Abyss opens, chaos comes. Before Suliang could figure out the key, everyone was already in the demon-suppressing dragon vein. At the same time, there are also a group of Holy Land elders and other experts who have arrived here. I've met the Holy Lord. All the elders saluted 11 Hang. Okay, now is the critical moment, so we don't need so many useless things. 11 Hang waved his hand, frowned and asked, what is going on? Returning to the Holy Master, my subordinate went to investigate just now. The worst case may have happened. The long river barrier has been completely damaged, and the foreign passage has been completely opened. Through that passage, we can even see some conditions in the abyss. Those are, densely packed, countless abyss creatures. Hear this. Suliang and others all looked solemn. Damn, the worst has happened. The demon-suppressing dragon vein and the long river barrier are the strongest barriers to suppress foreign lands and isolate foreign invaders. Once there is a problem in this place and it is completely destroyed, the full invasion of the abyss will no longer be able to stop it. And this is not just a problem in the Holy Land. There are many abyss fissures scattered in the world, and those are the foreign passages from the abyss to the real world. Normally, with the presence of the demon-suppressing dragon vein, these places can still be suppressed and sealed. But now, I'm afraid that all the passages in various places have been opened. This is a disaster that affects the world. 11 Hang sighed, and for a moment, he didn't know what to do. She is just a person with no skills at all. How can she take care of all the foreign passages in the world? And even if we mobilize experts from all over the world to take action, there are definitely not that many experts in the world who can take action. How to do this? Ji Hongchen also frowned and asked. This time, it is also related to her magic. As the demonic emperor, Ji Hongchen naturally has to deal with these matters. Don't panic yet. Go over and take a look. Maybe it's not that far yet. Suliang was much calmer than the others. While comforting the two women, he said to the elders of the Holy Land, "Please help me, Senior. Go outside and call for more help. As for those young people from various sects, please let them take action and go to various places in the world to find out the news. If there are really abyss creatures appearing, they will report back immediately." The elders of the Holy Land naturally knew Suliang's identity, and also knew that the Holy Master had always lived next to this young man. Then he directly agreed to Suliang's words, and then asked, "Is the same true for the devil?" "The same is true for magic." Suliang nodded in affirmation. "Senior, don't worry, let them be careful. If the devil's path is fine, they will go back directly. If the devil's path is really the same as ours, they may not have time to take action against a few righteous young people." Seeing that the elder was hesitant to speak, Suliang smiled and said, "I know what the elder is worried about, but this is a disaster for the entire world. If we work together and deal with it together, maybe we still have hope of getting through it. At this juncture, we can no longer distinguish between good and evil and divide ourselves. Indeed, I have learned a lesson." The elder nodded, deeply convinced of Suliang's words. Immediately, he bowed directly and quickly retreated. Immediately, Suliang said to everyone again, let's go to meet the enemy together. Although it is impossible to block the abyss creatures from the abyss, at least we must not let them act randomly." And with the extremely reasonable arrangement before this time, all the powerful men had no doubts about Suliang's arrangement. As for the girls of the Su family, they really listened to their husbands. Then a group of people rushed to the Changhe barrier without stopping. And the scene that happened immediately made everyone hold their breath subconsciously. Between the magnificent long river barrier has collapsed countless times at this moment. And then a huge passage suddenly opened, connecting the abyss and the real world. And in that passage, countless abyssal creatures lined up in neat queues, walking towards this side. This time, it was really like a tide, almost endless, and frightening. With such a large number of abyssal creatures, even those with transcendent cultivation can be exhausted here just by relying on their numbers. Not to mention, among these abyssal creatures, there are countless transcendent beings. How to resist this? Some elders' voices trembled when they spoke. Do your best. Suliang's words were concise, but his eyes kept patrolling back and forth among the abyssal creatures. Soon, his face darkened. At the entrance to the foreign passage, it seems that 9 out of 10 abyssal creatures have separated and gone to other places. Sure enough, all the foreign passages in various places have been connected. His words almost directly confirmed their terrifying speculation just now. Moment. Everyone's heart sank and they started to panic. If the entire world is really filled with abyssal creatures, then what should I do? Don't panic, my dear disciple, it's just a guess. It's better to wait until the scattered proud men come back to find out the news. Wan Qing said in a deep voice, calming everyone's anxiety. It's always good to be prepared and make arrangements in advance. Suliang said softly, before the abyssal creatures take action, we should make arrangements as soon as possible to resist together. What to do? 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen looked at Suliang at the same time. It's very simple. Once the exact news comes back, we will have to rely on the influence of the two of you. Us. 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen looked at each other, then nodded in unison. Now is not the time to be angry with her. We are facing a formidable enemy and we must unite. As for the fight between the two of them, it doesn't hurt to wait until this matter is over. If the abyssal creatures don't resist, it's unclear whether the two of them have the chance or intention to fight. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 542. Immediately. They then heard Suliang ask, "Can you two summon the strong men from each sect? Perhaps we have been thinking about something wrong." Suliang came to the foreign land passage. Looking at the abyss creatures that were so close to him but not making any move, he felt a little clear in his heart, there are really too many abyss creatures coming this time. Even if they want to mobilize from the abyss side, it should cost a lot of money to mobilize them, a lot of time. So what? 11 Hang asked, but his eyes were already shining with light. If it is true as Suliang said, maybe there will be another fight this time. So, we should still have time to unify the forces under our control. Suliang said this firmly and with full confidence. This battle is not without a chance of winning. Volume 1 Chapter 489 A shocking battle. The creatures of the abyss suddenly took action. Although the power in the world was strong and there were many strong people, it was still scattered. If they fought on their own, they really had no way to resist. There will always be places where there are few strong people who cannot stop the abyssal creatures. And in places where there are many strong people, like here, if they are besieged by abyssal creatures from other places, it will be difficult to stop the abyssal creatures. But if the abyssal creatures give them enough time, then all this can be changed. As long as we integrate the power of the entire world and take action together, even the creatures of the abyss can fight him back. But those strong men are very proud. If they don't obey orders, what can we do? Ji Hongchen asked hesitantly. Especially the powerful ones like them, who are very arrogant and arrogant. She, the demonic emperor, can suppress them, but others, they won't be obeyed at all. So, it depends on the influence of the two of you. Suliang smiled confidently, as long as you give the order, let people pass the order to every sect and every strong person. How could they disobey orders? Hear this. Ji Hongchen and 11 Hang each thought for a moment, then nodded frequently. Yes, if we do this, we can indeed mobilize these people. We just need to let them come here, we will tell them the seriousness of the matter in person, and then make unified arrangements. This is the most appropriate thing. Suliang explained his thoughts to 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen. That makes sense, that's exactly what it should be. Ji Hongchen and 11 Hang nodded in agreement. Immediately, they all looked at Suliang. In that case, let me leave this matter to you, okay? Suliang opened his mouth slightly, a little surprised. I'm just a young monk, how can I have such prestige? It doesn't matter. 11 Hang shook his head, you just need to do it in our two names. Ji Hongchen added at the side, when those people get here, the two of us will be there for you. Good guy, am I going to command the heroes by relying on the soft rice of the two big bosses of good and evil? Suliang was shocked, but thinking about it carefully, it seems that there is indeed a lot of room to operate in this way. But why do you want me to come? Suliang was very puzzled. The two of us are not good at doing this kind of thing. 11 Hang said calmly, but you did a good job, and we also believe in you. Believe me? Suliang was silent for a moment and finally nodded, okay. Immediately. Suliang did not hesitate and immediately ordered, Benjeo, go back to the sect and, in the name of our Tiandeo sect, deliver the news to those who are cooperating with us and ask them to help. At the same time, also pass the news on go out. Remember, distinguish between good and evil, and tell them respectively whose order it is. Tiandeo sect is mainly about business, and the people who cooperate with it are all over the world. In the whole world, it is naturally the fastest to convey news through such channels. Good. Qin Benjeo nodded, and used the power of time and space to rush forward, and disappeared here in an instant. Immediately. Suliang then looked at his other girlfriends, sister, Yao Yao, Wan Yu, you guys should go back to your own families and sects, and let the family masters and sect masters use their own strength to spread the news. Compared with Tan Kinja, Tao Yao said it in person, and naturally it was those family heads who had been famous for a long time. The words of the sect leader were more convincing. It's better to save some trouble. Good. Tan Kinja and the others immediately took the order and left directly. Master, Jing Meng, you two return to the sect and activate the power of the sect to let other strong men come to the Holy Land. Suliang said immediately. However, this time the instructions were really better than nothing. After all, because of the previous election for the leader of the righteous path, most of the powerful ones are already in the Holy Land. But if the two of them take action, coupled with concubine Tan's power, maybe they can really give Suliang some surprises. And when these two people left, Suliang looked at Mu Qingqian again. Qingqian, together with the Holy Sun, take the geniuses who are still in the Holy Land to deliver the news to various sections. You, the goddess, and the Holy Sun are the ones delivering the news about the Holy Lord together. They will believe it. I'll come back as soon as possible. Mu Qing spoke concisely and to the point, then turned and left. At last, Suliang looked at Yang Kaoj and said, Kaoj, the power of the secular dynasty cannot be underestimated. You can use the power of Daxia to spread this news. And in those places close to foreign passages, you still need your help to evacuate ordinary people. Don't worry, Lang Jun, Yefei and I will not let you down. Yang Kaoj nodded, flew up and left here. Calculating the time carefully, Suliang finally said to 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen, calculating the time, they should be back soon. Let's prepare the venue as soon as possible. Good. Ji Hongchen and 11 Hang nodded. Up to now, they still haven't come back to their senses. Being able to accomplish such a complex and huge thing at the minimum cost and with the minimum number of people. This is too awesome. They both asked themselves. If the two of them arrange it, I am afraid that the entire Holy Land or the original demon sect will be empty. After all, everyone was sent out by them. And from this moment on, the entire world, including the world of immortality and the secular dynasty, was shaken. The foreign channel is about to be completely connected, and the news that the abyss is about to come spread throughout the world in an instant. Not even a tiny corner was pulled down. And it was this day. The secular dynasties, headed by Daxia, and countless other dynasties, regardless of whether they had any grudges or not, actually united and took huge actions. Gendao, the news released by Tiandao sect through its own cooperation channels, reached the hands of every major chamber of commerce in an instant, allowing them to prepare immediately. Fukang Dao sect, Zongtutan family and other sects also took action. Tao masters and family heads personally came forward to invite those hidden masters and other sect masters and family heads. The geniuses of each sect of the righteous path also rushed to every inch of the land of the righteous path, looking for the possible high masters. In the devil's way, the behemoth of the Yin-Yang Dao sect, the demon sect family, and the original demon sect are at full strength. For a while, countless strong men rushed towards the Holy Land. Moving forward at full speed, in a very short period of time. All the powerful masters in the world gathered in the Holy Land of righteous path. Both good and evil are treated equally at this moment. Even those powerful hermits who lived in seclusion in the mountains, devoted themselves to cultivating Taoism, and had not been involved in the world for a long time, were found and captured. After all, if Abyss really succeeds, what can they do even if they live in seclusion in the mountains? I am afraid that sooner or later the creatures of the Abyss will find them and kill them there. Even most of the masters in the world have failed. How could a few of them be the opponents of Abyss? You are actually here too. A strong man with the image of an old man fell from the sky, looked at the acquaintances gathered here, and asked in surprise. It turns out it's you, an old guy. We haven't seen you for several years. We thought you had died somewhere long ago. Many people were surprised when they saw this old man. This old man is a powerful man with a long history. But when he retired from the world, his lifespan had already come to an end, and he could only die if he didn't break through. After not appearing for several years, everyone thought he had failed. Unexpectedly, he could still appear. I explored a secret realm and luckily got some beneficial breakthroughs. Seeing that there was plenty of spiritual energy, I went to live in seclusion there. The old man touched his beard and looked at these old acquaintances with some surprise. But you guys, I heard that you have been hiding from the world for a long time, why are you still here? Looking at each other, they all smiled bitterly and shook their heads. While they were living in seclusion, they were told that the abyss was approaching and they were asked to come out and take action. Where could they find reason? The first reaction was of course that they refused. But as soon as they said their rejection, the people who came to find them beat them up and took them out. What else could they do? Although people like Concubine Tan, Wan Qing, and others, in their eyes, are just a group of kids and rising stars. But I can't beat him at all, so I'm very angry. And just then. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 543. Several more figures fell from the sky and came to the crowd. All of a sudden, everyone felt that waves of demonic aura were spreading, and even the sacred aura in the Holy Land could not be concealed. They all looked around and saw that several demon masters had arrived. It turns out that this is the Holy Land of Righteousness. It is indeed a good place. You devilish thief, how dare you come to my Holy Land of Righteousness? The strong man of righteousness here couldn't bear it anymore and almost took action. It is almost common sense that when a righteous person encounters a demonic person, he will directly kill him. If someone hadn't invited us here, we wouldn't want to come here. What a holy place! The smell is uncomfortable. Someone from the demonic path smiled coldly. Want to take action? Come on, I'll kill you. I'll go back just in time, so I'm too lazy to stay here with you. As soon as these words were spoken, it was like a powder keg being lit, instantly detonating the atmosphere. A group of righteous people stepped forward together, their auras flickering, and they were obviously about to take action. You demon thief, you just want to follow my righteous path, but you still dare to make such a noise. Do you really think we dare not kill you? Then. They couldn't care less about the Holy Lord's instructions or the existence of the demonic emperor. There were buzzing sounds, and both good and evil forces drew their weapons together, and a battle was about to begin. But at this moment, a not loud, but firm and powerful voice sounded among the crowd. That's enough, everyone stop. Involuntarily, both good and evil people stopped their hands and looked towards the direction from which the sound came. However, he discovered that the person speaking was actually just a detached young man. Haha, Gendeo is really arrogant. He is just a detached young man, but he dares to reprimand me. The demon lord of the demon sect who possesses the magic way sneered, boy, do you believe that I will kill you right away? As soon as these words came out, some people immediately responded tit for tat, stop talking nonsense, those who want to disturb my righteous way are just wishful thinking. Immediately, he looked at the young man again and said, boy, at your age and your cultivation level has reached transcendence, you can be said to be a genius. Don't worry, we will protect you. The young man is Sul Yang. However, Sul Yang shook his head and came to the crowd, you can fight here, I won't stop you, but don't forget, the abyss in the world is still gathering momentum. Every time one is injured here, we will lose a little strength when we resist the abyss. As soon as these words came out, all the masters of good and evil frowned. Obviously, even though good and evil have a deep hatred, they are still a little afraid when facing the common enemy of the abyss. Besides, it's the Holy Lord and the Emperor who asked you to come. You should weigh it yourself. Suliang hit the final kill. This time, everyone has lost the desire to take action. Indeed, 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen asked them to come. If they really fight here, once the Holy Lord and Zun Huang are offended, they may be able to kill them all alone. Can't afford to offend. I'm scared. See this. Suliang breathed a sigh of relief. The Holy Lord and the Emperor are still waiting for you inside. Come with me. Say it. Then he led everyone to the venue that had been prepared in advance. Watch this scene. Tao Yao came close to Suliang and said with admiration, "Brother Suliang, you are so powerful. The most powerful people in both good and evil ways can be mobilized by you. Hear this." Suliang shook his head and smiled, but said nothing. After all, it was 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen who gave him the confidence. Otherwise, even if an abyss comes, how could they listen to Suliang, a little detached boy? I'm afraid, everyone will think that he is just a kid who overestimates his abilities. They walked quickly along, and in just a moment, everyone followed Suliang to the venue. And at this moment, 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen have been waiting here for a long time. Everyone took their seats, and Suliang walked to the main seat very naturally, between Ji Hongchen and 11 Hang. I will arrange your transfer this time. Suliang spoke very concisely and concisely. Time was running out, and there was no time for him to be too polite and humble. But as soon as these words came out, the crowd immediately went crazy. They are all giants, no matter their strength, background, or power, they are all extraordinary. It would be fine if the Holy Lord and Zun Huang personally mobilized them. They did not dare to object. But just a teenager? Is he worthy? And to this, 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen took a step forward at the same time. Moment. The aura belonging to the peak of good and evil permeated the whole place, and the powerful pressure made it difficult for these so-called strong men of good and evil to even breathe. By behaving like this, the two of them had already expressed their attitudes. Is there anyone else who objects? Suliang stood in front of everyone and said with a smile. Although he only achieved the step with the help of the two big bosses, good and evil. But Suliang accepted it calmly. To be able to have such trust in both good and evil bosses is obviously not just a matter of emotion. Suliang also had confidence in himself, since no one objects. Let's make arrangements now. Volume 1 Chapter 490 The Advantages of Having More Girlfriends. As Suliang made arrangements, everyone below agreed. At first, they only listened to Suliang because of 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen. Now, it can be said that they are really convinced by Suliang. I just met them briefly and asked about their cultivation and background. Suliang actually used a very short time to arrange the passages they needed to guard. It will not be too far away from the power it is in, and every place is balanced in strength, with little ups and downs. Even so, it may not be possible to prevent the strong pressure concentrated in one place in the abyss. But whether such a situation will occur and where it will occur are unknown. So, it can be said that Suliang's current arrangement is the most appropriate. Even. Not just them, Suliang thought about everything. Benjeo, your time and space power is most suitable for traveling. So, please be more troublesome and keep patrolling everywhere. Suliang said to Qin Benjeo. Let her maneuver around the battlefield, naturally not let her supervise anyone. When it comes to their own lives and deaths, these big guys will never be lazy. The reason why Qin Benjeo was like this was naturally to prevent excessive pressure in one place. In this case, Suliang could react in time and make adjustments. Can only say. In this era where contact methods are somewhat difficult and complicated, this arrangement is already the safest. Suliang, don't worry. Qin Benjeo nodded, full of confidence. Of course, the things that my husband told me must be completed immediately. Su Liang looked at the other ladies in his family and said, just follow the good and the evil and spread out, and fight on your own. Behind the ladies in my family, they all have their own forces. Even if it is Mu Qingqian and Tao Yao Yao, one is the direct disciple of the Taoist master of the Shang sect, and the other is the daughter of the head of the demon sect family. Spreading out individually will play a greater role than gathering in one place in the Holy Land. As for the safety of his girlfriends, although Su Liang was worried, he still chose to believe in his ladies. When he was taken away by Ji Hongchen, his ladies all started their own cultivation. Su Liang naturally knew about this. Since ladies are very confident, Su Liang also chose to believe it. Good. Tan Qinja and others all nodded. Although I am not happy to be separated from my husband. However, for the future of yourself and Lang Jun, you must not fail this time no matter what. Absolutely not. All the girls secretly made up their minds. And finally, Su Liang looked at Ying Kaoj and said, Kaoj, take the people from the secular dynasty and be responsible for scattering the people. Once the war starts, it will affect a wide area. If they are still there, there will be countless casualties. Don't worry, Mr. Lang. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 544. Ying Kaoj nodded, which was regarded as an agreement to the people of other secular dynasties. From the beginning to the end, this group of people from the secular dynasty did not say a word. There is no way, among them, even if the cultivation level is superb, they are only in the immortal state, but they are not enough to win Chao Ji alone. But those present were all the top masters in the world. Even Su Liang, who was not considered too powerful in the eyes of others, could defeat them all with one hand. As for the Holy Lord of the Righteous Path and the Emperor of the Demonic Path, they are already legendary figures, no different from the immortals in heaven. I didn't dare to speak at all, I was so cowardly. Otherwise, why would there be an order in the world of immortality not to interfere with the secular dynasty? After some arrangements, everyone dispersed, returned to their own forces as quickly as possible, and began to mobilize and guard the passage. And not until everyone has left. Call. Su Liang took a deep breath and felt a lot more relaxed. I've done everything I can. I hope the result won't be too bad. With a sigh, Su Liang continued to think, looking for possible mistakes. You've done a great job, don't be too hard on yourself. 11 Haing came behind Su Liang and put her cold jade hands on Su Liang's forehead to help Su Liang relieve his fatigue. But Ji Hongchen is more direct. Pressing Su Liang on the peak, Ji Hongchen gently patted Su Liang's head and said softly, rest peacefully. You have done enough. It's already this time, do you two still want to compare? Su Liang was quite speechless, but still relaxed. Indeed, everything I should do has been done. Before going out into the abyss, let's take a good rest. However, not too long passed. Just after Su Liang roughly estimated that those people had returned and prepared their own guard. Soon, an elder from the Holy Land came to Su Liang and said, Holy Lord, those abyssal creatures in the foreign passage are taking action. Hear this. Su Liang stood up immediately, are they heading towards us? Yes. The Holy Land elder nodded. At this moment, everyone in the Holy Land no longer looked down upon Su Liang's words. Able to integrate all the forces in the world and make reasonable arrangements. Even though Su Liang relied on the intimidation of 11 Haing and Ji Hongchen, it was extremely difficult to achieve this. If it were anyone else, even with 11 Haing and Ji Hongchen around, I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to achieve Su Liang's results. It seems that the abyss is going to war with us. Su Liang chuckled and walked directly out. Let's go and see how confident Abyss is that he dares to start a war with the entire world. Zongtuten's house is not far away. Tan Kinja stood outside a foreign passage, looking at the abyssal creatures standing majestically in the passage, silent. Actually, this is the one where the Queen of the Abyss appeared when Suliang was still in the Tan family. And at this moment, because there is nothing worth guarding near Tiandaizong. So, Tan Kinja simply returned to Tan's house with her mother and guarded it together. Kinja, take a rest. Concubine Tan slowly came behind Tan Kinja and patted her daughter on the shoulder. Since I came back, you have made all the arrangements. Now that there is no change in the abyss, you might as well take a rest first. No need, mother. Tan Kinja smiled and shook her head. I always feel that the abyss is about to take action. It was as if they were waiting for them to make arrangements. And just then, laugh. There was a sound of breaking through the air, and then, there was a spear heading straight towards Concubine Tan. And at the moment the spear is approaching, Tan Kinja suddenly took action and grabbed the spear in her hand. The sneak attack from behind is so shameless. With a soft drink, Tan Kinja threw back the spear in her hand. Volume 1 Chapter 491 The bloody battle begins, the tempering of the girls. In an instant, he killed several abyss creatures. Looking at the scene in front of them, both Tan Kinja and Tan Fei frowned. I saw. The creatures of the abyss that were so obedient before are now all taking action. Mother, prepare to take action, there is going to be a war. Tan Kinja said to her mother. Among the abyssal creatures like a tide. Tan Kinja stood alone at the front as countless abyssal creatures roared towards them, including some powerful beings who transcended the realm. But he couldn't even take a step beyond Tan Kinja. With each move, Tan Kinja was almost as beautiful as a dance, fluttering gently, with the wind blowing like snow. However, there seems to be an unusual power in this dance. In just a moment, those abyssal creatures can kill each other, or even die on the spot. This is the power of the charming body. Before, when Suliang was taken away. While studying the martial arts of the Tan family, Tan Kinja has been thinking about one thing, which is to integrate all these martial arts into her own charming body. Tan Kinja, who entered the Tao through dance and has a charming body, knows exactly where her path forward lies. And now, all the hard work you put in back then has paid off now? Looking at Tan Kinja in front of her, she was able to resist a group of abyssal creatures by herself. All the masters and experts present swallowed hard, feeling shocked in their hearts. The eldest lady of the Tan family doesn't seem to have top-notch cultivation, but this strength is really too strong. Absolutely shocking. Outside Fukang Dao sect. Wan Qing looked at the abyss creatures sweeping in front of her with cold eyes, and took action without hesitation. How can you let yourself come out on top? A strong man laughed and followed Wan Qing, wanting to compete with Wan Qing. However, soon, this man discovered that he could not keep up with Wan Qing. Wan Qing's strength is beyond her imagination. At the same time, among the strongest people in the world, Wan Qing is actually one level stronger than her. As soon as she rushed into the wave of abyssal creatures, she was entangled by the abyssal creatures. Even though no one could hurt her, despite her strength, it was difficult to move forward. And what about Tan Kinja? One person took action, and in the blink of an eye, he rushed up against the tide, blocked the entrance to the foreign passage alone, and killed all abyssal creatures that dared to invade. This Taoist master of Fukang Dao sect is so powerful. The people guarding Wan Qing all gasped in unison. This kind of strength is probably second only to 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen in the world today. Isn't this too unimaginable? But Wan Qing was not surprised at all that she could display such strength. After all, while the girls were practicing on their own, Wan Qing was not idle either. During the few days of training in the Holy Land, Wan Qing completely integrated and consolidated her own strength. Based on this alone, her strength has improved a lot and is now at its peak. Abyssal creatures, those who dare to take a step into the present world will die. Wan Qing shouted softly, the sword energy was like a rainbow, dazzling and unstoppable. In the ranks of the secular dynasty. Your Majesty, all the work in my Daxia has been completed. Ye Fei came to Ying Kaoj to report. Being able to complete all the arrangements in a very short period of time, it can be said that Ye Fei and Ying Kaoj have tried their best. And just then, not far away, bursts of exclamations sounded. Ying Kaoj looked up and saw hundreds of immortal abyss creatures suddenly appearing. Among them, the aura of the most powerful existence has actually reached the realm of transcendence. Why do abyssal creatures appear here? Ying Kaoj frowned, but without hesitation, he flew over and stopped him. After all, now, besides the ministers of Great Xia, there are only some ordinary guards around her. Among the secular dynasties, their strength was considered extremely strong, but once abyssal creatures were involved, they would be difficult to resist. His Majesty. Seeing Ying Kaoj take action, everyone immediately exclaimed. Compared with hundreds of terrifying abyss creatures, Ying Kaoj alone is like a mantis trying to use his arms as a chariot. However, my villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 545. Next moment. Tyrannosaurus. Ying Kaoj shouted softly, and one of his arms turned into the form of a dragon's claw. With one punch, the powerful force created a vacuum in front of the eyes. Dozens of abyssal creatures all died under Ying Chao Singer. And this Tyrannosaurus arm is the result of Ying Kaoj's training. After repeated training, Ying Kaoj can already cover the Tyrannosaurus posture to any place and form any size. In this way, not only does it consume less, but it can also increase the power of the hit, and the strength is almost doubled several times. Then, such Ying Kaoj is like a wolf entering a flock of sheep, killing all the abyss creatures in an instant. The tyrant dragon posture disappeared. Ying Kaoj frowned and looked at these abyss creatures. Why do they appear here? Forget it, let's mention it to Benjao when she gets here. Maybe Lang Jun knows the reason. Now, Qin Benjao, who kept using the power of time and space to deliver messages and inquire about the situation, encountered some troubles. When tearing apart a space and escaping, what appeared in front of Qin Benjao's eyes were countless abyssal creatures. Why do abyssal creatures appear here? Qin Benjao immediately frowned, a little confused. I looked at my current location. Qin Benjao discovered that she was actually near the Holy Land of Righteousness. Therefore, the goal of these abyssal creatures is also the Holy Land. At this moment, Qin Benjao already knew the news of wars in various places. Suliang's place was naturally also engaged in a tough battle. And if such a group of abyssal creatures suddenly take action, even though their strength is not enough, 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen will kill them casually. But this kind of surprise is enough to make the people in the Holy Land of Righteous Path panic and think that it is a fall elsewhere, so they lose their will to fight and are completely defeated. This is not good. It seems that we can't let you pass. Qin Benjao said softly, took a step forward, and her figure seemed to speed up. In an instant, she appeared in front of a group of abyssal creatures. And the moment he saw Qin Benjao, these abyssal creatures took action without saying a word. Now that the purpose has been exposed, let's kill the human in front of us first. However, next moment, time and space. Qin Benjao drank lightly. Immediately, the power of time and space was actually activated at the same time, creating a barrier-like existence that imprisoned all these abyssal creatures within it. All of a sudden, the abyss creatures felt as if they were stuck in a quagmire, as if time around them had slowed down, making it difficult for them to move forward. And even the entire space seems to be repelling and crushing them. During my previous training, I learned a lot of new methods. Qin Benjao chuckled to herself. In that place, time and space were extremely chaotic, and various strange phenomena occurred frequently. Qin Benjao understood many ways to use the power of time and space from them. Next moment. Minced. Qin Benjao shouted softly. Time suddenly became chaotic, and cracks burst out in space. Just a moment. All these abyss creatures were killed inside. It's better to go find Sulang and tell him what's going on here. Qin Benjao said, tearing open the space and escaping into it. Sulang sat outside the demon-suppressing dragon vein and rested temporarily. Listening to Qin Benjao's words, Sulang frowned and thought carefully for a moment. It should be just a few teams that left secretly, perhaps it was the plan of some big shots in the abyss. If a few of them slipped away from the battle between countless abyssal creatures, no one would notice. While the forces of this world are resisting the abyss head-on, some powerful teams are sent to sneak attack from behind. This strategy is effective. If used well, it may be able to defeat some strong men guarding the abyss. However, it can only be used once or twice. The more times it is used, the more precautions are taken, and this method will lose its effect. But now, since it has been discovered by Sulang, it is naturally useless. Benjao, I have to trouble you to make a trip. Go to the various foreign passages and inform them so that they can be more vigilant. It's just a small team. As long as they are prepared, they can completely resist. Good. Qin Benjao nodded and agreed immediately. But then, he asked curiously, why does Sulang think there is a foreign passage that we haven't discovered yet? It is not so easy to open the passage to a foreign land. Sulang smiled and explained, otherwise, wouldn't the abyss come to us every now and then? What's more, every opening of a new far-reaching channel can cause huge movements. There is no reason why we can't notice it. I see. Qin Benjao was suddenly stunned. Talk about it? Although Qin Benjao has paid attention to the information about the abyss recently due to the frequent changes in the abyss. But after all, the time was still short, and she didn't pay too much attention to it. After clearing all the doubts, Qin Benjao stepped forward and hugged Sulang. Immediately. He even stood on tiptoes, raised his little head, and leaned forward for a gentle kiss. A long time. After they separated, Qin Benjao smiled and said, Hey, Sulang's energy has been replenished, I'm going to set off. Say it. It directly tore apart the space and escaped into it, disappearing without a trace. This girl, you really worked hard for her. Sulang shook his head and smiled, but suddenly sighed. Although this method of abyss can only succeed once or twice. But they only need to succeed once or twice. If there is really a foreign passage that is not guarded, a gap will be opened. I'm afraid that when the time comes, there will be a huge defeat as a whole. Even if 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen try their best, they may not be able to save it. I hope Benjao can catch up. Sulang sighed, turned around and entered the demon-suppressing dragon vein. It has been a long time since the war started. Whether in this world or in the abyss, the losses are quite heavy. And now, even those who were still resisting the foreign passage were almost all exhausted. This battle cannot continue like this. We still have to find a way. Sulang sighed again, and Lei Zhang took action. Wherever the sword passed, a vacuum zone of abyssal creatures appeared. After breaking through the realm of cultivation and transcendence, Suliang's strength has improved dozens of times compared to before. Just for a moment, Suliang rushed to the front and stood with the elders of the Holy Land. Except for 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen, who had to guard against such a powerful existence in the abyss as the Queen of the Abyss, they couldn't take action. Suliang and these Holy Land elders have almost become the most powerful beings in the Holy Land. After all, this time, without the addition of those Taoist masters and powerful men, the strength of the Holy Land was dozens of times weaker. But the good thing is, There are other foreign passages scattered around, so it's not that difficult here. Everyone, block it, we must not let the creatures of the abyss break through our place. Suliang shouted in a deep voice to the surrounding Holy Land elders. Immediately, the sacred artifact Reizo was activated, and as golden thunder and lightning flashed, all the surrounding abyssal creatures died. Senior Sister Qin is so amazing. Tao Yaoyao stood beside Qin Wanyu and said with admiration. What she said was true. Although Qin Wanyu's talent seems to be far from hers. Even his cultivation level is not much higher than hers. But at this moment, Qin Wanyu's role on the battlefield was actually much more than hers. Now, Qin Wanyu and Tao Yaoyao were following the team of the demon sect family to resist an exotic passage of the demonic way. Tao Yaoyao's mother stood on the horizon not far away, overlooking everything happening here. He is already ready to take action at any time to stop the most powerful person emerging from the abyss. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 546. In addition to the detachment of the demon sect family, the ones who were resisting at the front turned out to be Qin Wanyu and Tao Yaoyao, two people who seemed to many to be juniors. And this moment, Qin Wanyu was sitting in the battlefield, with a piano platform in front of her. A long qin is placed on the qin table. It is the one Suliang gave to Qin Wanyu. While in the battlefield, Qin Wanyu just played the piano leisurely. The moment the piano sounds, the abyss creature, fearless of death, seemed to be frightened by the sound of the piano, and actually showed fear. But the strong men here in the present world seemed to be inspired. They were all very brave, as if they had no fear, and they attacked fiercely and powerfully. You've been strengthened, come on. In just an instant, all the abyssal creatures that came to the world were blocked back. And when the number of abyssal creatures expanded more and more, they even reached the place where Qin Wanyu was. Seeing that Qin Wanyu had no intention of retreating, Tao Yaoyao simply stood beside Qin Wanyu, intending to protect Qin Wanyu. But the fact is, Qin Wanyu doesn't need protection at all. Previously, the sound of the piano only played a supporting role. At this moment, every sound is like a sword, carrying unparalleled lethality. Every time it is played, it will take away countless abyss creatures. There is no abyss creature that can get close to Qin Wanyu. Since Senior Sister Qin is so powerful, we can't lag behind. Tao Yaoyao chuckled, no longer worried about Tao Yaoyao, holding a long sword in her hand, and rushed straight into the abyss creatures. Volume 1 Chapter 492 Suliang's Countermeasures and Negotiations with the Queen of the Abyss. Even not long ago, Tao Yaoyao's strength was actually inferior to Mu Qingqian's. So what can we do? Although he and Mu Qingqian have the same talent, they only have brother Suliang, but that violent woman practices every day. Then what? That violent woman was one step ahead of others and practiced dual cultivation with brother Suliang. How can others compare to this? However, at this moment, Tao Yaoyao seemed to be a completely different person. While his attacks were fierce and ruthless, he was agile and quick, like an elf, shuttling among the creatures in the abyss. But every time he takes action, he will definitely be able to take away several abyssal creatures. Just for a few moments. The defense that was almost pushed back was actually pulled towards the abyss creature by the actions of the two. Seeing this scene, everyone from the demon sect family was shocked. The eldest lady and the eldest lady's senior sister are too powerful, right? Is this really just the realm of immortality? When Qin Benjao arrived here, she was a little surprised by what she saw. What's going on with that overwhelming sword light? Is Sister Jingmeng so powerful? It seems that she is not much different from Sister Wanking, right? However, Sister Jingmeng has cultivated herself bit by bit, and Sister Wanking seems to have integrated her own power from the previous life. In this case, the gap is not too big. Sister Jingmeng's talent is probably almost the same as mine, right? Looking at Jingmeng's sword light, the sword energy was flying all over the sky, killing all the abyss creatures. Does Sister Jingmeng always hide her capabilities and bide her time? However, this idea was rejected by Qin Binjiao as soon as it appeared. Well, it shouldn't be possible. With Sister Jingmeng's cuteness, she probably wouldn't have such an idea. Perhaps. It's just that there is no opponent that can make Sister Jingmeng serious. But actually, not long ago, Jingmeng's strength was not as exaggerated as it is now. Just because after Suliang was taken away, Jingmeng was worried and guilty, so she worked hard to practice and stabilize her swordsmanship, which greatly improved her strength. Logically speaking, at her level of cultivation, her strength should not improve too quickly. But guilt and worry are also very novel experiences for Jingmeng. Plus all the things that happened when Suliang was dating Suliang after he came back. Let Jingmeng gain some insights into the swordsmanship again. Although not much, his strength has improved a lot. And just then, Mu Qingqian saw Qin Binjiao and came up to her. "Binjiao, why are you here?" Mu Qingqian was very happy to see Qin Binjiao here. "Have you been to the Holy Land? How is the situation there with Lang Jun?" Qin Binjiao was asked this question by her sisters almost everywhere she went, and she understood their sisters' concerns very well. Then, without giving away, Qin Binjiao said, "Sulang's place is very good, don't worry, but here, Sulang and I have a discovery to tell you." Immediately, Qin Binjiao informed Mu Qingqian of Suliang's speculation. "Is there such a thing?" Mu Qingqian was startled and nodded immediately. "Don't worry, I will inform Master right away and let Master issue the order." However, before she could take a step, Jingmen's voice sounded in her ears. "What Binjiao said has already arrived, and is very close to us. My master can't spare the time to deal with them now. Qingqian, please take action on my behalf." "Yes, master." Mu Qingqian immediately agreed, and without saying a word, quickly walked in the direction the master said. See this. Naturally, Qin Binjiao couldn't just sit back and watch, so she followed behind. Really? In a place not far from where everyone was guarding, there are a group of abyssal creatures approaching quickly. Like those Qin Binjiao met, the leader was an abyss creature that transcended the realm. The others are mostly in the immortality realm and dragon transformation realm. This strength made Qin Binjiao frown slightly. It's not that it's impossible to deal with, it's just that it's too weak. It's really strange. If this team is used as a surprise attack, isn't it too weak? It was as if, for fear of not being able to win in this world, they deliberately selected weak abyssal creatures to come. I can't figure it out, I really can't figure it out. And just when Qin Binjiao was thinking, Mu Qingqian on the side had already unsheathed his sword and started fighting. See this. Qin Binjiao did not hesitate to join in to help. However, Mu Qingqian stopped her. "Binjiao, please don't do anything. You are tired enough of passing messages between various foreign channels." But Qin Binjiao was a little hesitant. There were actually too many abyssal creatures here, and many of them were not weaker than Mu Qingqian in cultivation. She was worried that Mu Qingqian would suffer a loss. "It doesn't matter, it's just a creature of the abyss, I can still deal with it." Mu Qingqian just smiled. Immediately, in a fierce attack, the abyss creature that transcended the realm was cut down with a sword. The biggest threat is gone. Other abyssal creatures were no match for Mu Qingqian. In just a moment, they were all killed. You are not the only one who has become stronger during practice. Mu Qingqian slowly sheathed her sword and showed a proud smile to Qin Benjiao. At the beginning, he, the Holy Sun, and Tao Yaoyao explored the secret realm together, fought successively, and under various opportunities, their strength increased quite a lot. Lang Jun, Qingqian can help you. Mu Qingqian looked in the direction of the Holy Land and smiled lightly. Holy place. In the demon-suppressing dragon vein. The battle here is getting more and more intense. The creatures of the abyss are almost immortal and their number is almost endless. Even if he was beheaded, I don't know how many people there are. But there is no sign of backing down. However, there are many creatures in the abyss, but in the Holy Land, Suliang is becoming increasingly rare among the powerful ones who can come in handy. Except for those who accidentally fell here. Even the elders of the Holy Land, after fighting for a long time, have to take a break and take turns with others. The nearly endless battle has consumed them too much. But even after the rotation, he still couldn't get enough rest. He didn't even recover much of his true energy before he took action again. How can we sustain it for a long time? Not to mention, the attacks of abyssal creatures are becoming more and more fierce, and the time they can take turns to rest is getting less and less. Unsustainable. And at this moment, my villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 547. Suliang once again exhausted his true energy and retreated outside the battlefield to take a short rest. Compared with others, his true energy recovery speed is much faster, and therefore, Suliang's fighting time is longer than others. Suliang, are you okay? Volume 1 Chapter 493 Sacrifice yourself? Suliang's choice. Ji Hongchen immediately came forward and injected a ray of true energy into Suliang to help him recover. 11 Hang came to the other side and helped Suliang sit down, get some more rest. You have done enough. No one will criticize you or anything. Hear this. Suliang shook his head. He fights not to avoid being harshly criticized. For the sake of his wives, Suliang must persevere. 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen naturally knew what Suliang was thinking, and they both sighed, with a trace of envy flashing in their eyes. The feeling of being cared about is really enviable. If she had appeared by his side earlier, would she have been worried and concerned by him at this moment? But at this moment, Suliang suddenly stood up and said in a deep voice, "No, continuing to fight like this for a long time is simply not an option. Sooner or later, our side will not be able to support it. But abyssal creatures are also limited, right?" 11 Hang said thoughtfully. "This is our world, and we cannot place all our hopes on the number of abyssal creatures." Suliang shook his head, thought for a moment, and stepped into the demon-suppressing dragon vein. Immediately, he faced the abyss creatures and said calmly, "I want to negotiate with your queen, please get out of my way." The words fell. The abyssal creature actually made way for a passage. Walking slowly through the surroundings of abyssal creatures. During this period, no one stopped Suliang, allowing Suliang to walk into the foreign passage and into the abyss. Why can he make the abyss creatures stop? Someone suddenly said in confusion. Human beings in this world and abyssal creatures have a life and death relationship. Once they meet, they will be divided into life and death. It is simply much more serious than the dispute between good and evil. However, is there anyone among humans who can make the abyssal gods obey? This is simply unbelievable. To know. These are creatures of the abyss, brainless and demented. They are also the big figures in the abyss, who can order them. Suliang, a human being, why? Does this Suliang have anything to do with the abyss? Someone made a bold guess, which immediately shook people who didn't know the truth. But at this moment, a sword light flashed across, killing the person who just spoke. "Shut up, everyone." Ji Hongchen looked at them with a cold face, Suliang went into the abyss alone to take risks in order to reduce your casualties. It's okay for you not to be grateful. How dare you talk nonsense behind your back? You think this is the right way, so I won't dare to kill you. As for Ji Hongchen's actions, 11 Hang didn't seem to see it. He just stood aside, staring at the foreign passage with his beautiful eyes, feeling deeply worried in his heart. See this. Others don't know that 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen are basically protecting Suliang. However, think carefully about what Suliang did. Integrate the power of the entire world and make the most appropriate arrangement. Then, when fighting, he was thinking about the situation while resisting at the front. Maybe it's normal for such people to be protected? Then, everyone shut up and continued their fight. It's really not worth it to offend two strong men, 11 He Ying and Ji Hongchen, just to say something to Suliang. Very cowardly. And the other side. After walking through the foreign passage, Suliang quickly reached the abyss. What appeared in front of him was the same hall as last time. You're here. The moment the Queen of the Abyss saw Suliang, she laughed happily. I've been waiting for you for a long time. You have to arrange all the things in this world first. Suliang smiled and shook his head. I'm here this time to negotiate with you. Yeah, I know. The Queen of the Abyss crossed her plump legs and didn't care at all about what Suliang said. Whatever you want, just say it. I promised you to wait a month before I come to the abyss with you. Why did you suddenly take action? Suliang asked doubtfully. Well, I can't tell you directly. The Queen of the Abyss spread her hands. Immediately, he stood up directly and walked to Suliang. Say nothing. The Queen of the Abyss hugged Suliang, burying her little head in Suliang's arms, and said, I haven't seen you for a month. I miss you very much. Humph, you're good. The first time you met me, you actually questioned me and even said something cold about negotiating with me. Why, am I so annoying to you? I did not mean that. Suliang quickly shook his head in denial. If it were just the Queen of the Abyss, Suliang would naturally not be soft-hearted. But the girl in front of her was like a little girl who met her sweetheart. She showed gentleness and naivete to Suliang, which really made it difficult for Suliang to be cruel and say harsh words. At the same time, in my mind, the scene in the simulation kept coming back to me. The sweetness between boys and girls makes Suliang unable to help but smile every time he thinks about it. But why did the boys and girls at that time become what they are now? I know what you're thinking. The Queen of the Abyss seemed to understand Suliang very well, and smiled gently at Suliang. I know, you just want to end this war. As long as you understand. Suliang breathed a sigh of relief and looked at the Queen of the Abyss in front of him, with slightly complicated emotions. By now, his feelings for the Queen of the Abyss were really hard to explain. In terms of status, they are naturally life or death enemies. But the Queen of the Abyss helped him again and again, and the sweetness of the compromises and concessions because of him made Suliang know that the Queen of the Abyss would not harm him at all. It's really troublesome. But now, whether it is for the sake of his wives or the safety of the world, Suliang has to be tougher. Since you know my purpose, let's talk about your conditions. How can you make your men return it? Yuji. The Queen of the Abyss did not answer, but looked at Suliang seriously. My name is Yuji. Yuji, a very nice name. Suliang was startled, nodded, and then smiled again. Yuji, if you continue to fight like this, it will not be a good thing for us or you, Abyss. Even if you win, I'm afraid you won't have the strength to accept this world. In that case, why can't this fight stop? Sure. Queen of the Abyss Yuji nodded to Suliang and agreed happily. I can ask my men to withdraw. However, Yuji's statement actually made Suliang a little confused. It's not that he doesn't trust Yuji. Only, if you agreed so happily, why did you enter the world in the first place? And since you agreed to me, what about your conditions? You can't agree unconditionally, right? I always feel that there is something missing in the starting and ending time. Don't you have any requirements? Suliang asked tentatively. Of course. Yuji nodded matter-of-factly, my request is very simple. You can definitely do it. Hear this. Some bad thoughts immediately arose in Suliang's mind. Could it be, it's the same as the previous 2 times? Really? My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 548. The next moment, Yuji said, you stay here and stay with me for a while. It's not impossible, but how long is a period of time? Suliang hesitated for a moment, but did not continue to refuse. After all, they have done it over and over again, and it seems that they have become very proficient in the business. Now that it appears again and again, Suliang feels that he is used to it. For the sake of my own ladies, it seems like that's not the case, right? But something has been wrong for a while. A day is a period of time, isn't a year, 10 years, and 100 years also? For the Queen of the Abyss, even if 100 years is not a blink of an eye, it is still a short period of time. Don't worry, it won't be too long. Yuji smiled. Next moment. But he stepped forward, pinched Suliang's chin with his jade fingers, and breathed out, and I will tell you everything you want to know. The secret of the abyss, why I entered the world, you will know if you want to. Certainly. If you want to get the corresponding information, it depends on the price you pay. Hear this. Suliang was stunned for a moment, then decisively agreed, okay. The abyss has always been mysterious. As a result, it is so mysterious that there are not many records at all, and there is not much intelligence and information. Even though they have been fighting against the abyss for countless years in this world and are considered life or death enemies, few people dare to fight into the abyss. After all, the small number of abyssal creatures that have come to the world are already large enough and difficult to deal with. If you go deep into it, you will face endless abyssal creatures. I'm afraid that once you enter, you will have reached a dead end. And because the difference between humans and abyssal creatures is so great, their auras are also completely different, as conspicuous as fireflies in the middle of the night. In the abyss, it is difficult to hide even if you want to. Who would not think of going to the abyss to die? Therefore, if no one enters the abyss, the information cannot be transmitted at all. For Suliang at this moment, the information about the abyss promised by the Queen of the Abyss is really hard to refuse. At least, after having the information about the abyss, even if we start a war with the abyss later, it will not be like now, and we will only be beaten passively. So, can we only sacrifice ourselves to serve Yuji, the Queen of the Abyss, and let her enjoy herself? After all, you want information, so you have to work harder. Then, Suliang came directly to Yuji, bent down, and held Princess Yuji in his arms. Since we have to try our best, let's start from now on. Ah! Yuji didn't seem to expect that Suliang would be so proactive, and was immediately taken aback. But she came back to her senses, and rested her little head on Suliang's chest very naturally, feeling happy and comfortable. It's not bad, you actually know how to take the initiative. I'm optimistic about you, come on. I really don't want to hear you say such things. Suliang shook his head helplessly. Not only did he have to serve the enemy, but he also had to be told by the enemy to come on. This feeling is really subtle. But at this moment, Suliang didn't care about that much. As long as it makes Yuji happy, I have experience in this. He carried Yuji to the throne, but this time, Suliang did not put Yuji down. Instead, he hugged her directly and sat on the throne together. Moment. The soft contours are suppressed, and the beauty in his arms is so gentle and charming that people really can't put it down. Want a massage? Suliang subconsciously stroked the pair of small horns on Yuji's head and asked directly. However, he didn't expect that his behavior would make Yuji's pretty face turn red. Tan's mouth was slightly open, her breath was like blue, her beautiful eyes were hazy, and Yuji felt like she had no strength all over her body. The whole person collapsed in Suliang's arms. Want? Yuji nodded lightly, but she lowered her head shyly, not daring to look at Suliang. Really, did he do it on purpose or unintentionally? People's weaknesses are actually in his hands. Wouldn't there be a way to be threatened by him in the future? And if he wants to do the same when having in-depth communication in the future, hold the steering wheel with both hands. Yuji felt that she might not be his opponent at all. But soon, Yuji no longer had the mind to think about this. Suliang's hand slowly placed on her shoulder. Immediately, either light or heavy, with different techniques, I started massaging bit by bit. Be reasonable. Although Yuji is the queen of the abyss, her beauty is rare in the world. The skin is as creamy as frost and snow, white and silky, as smooth as silk. It's firm yet plump, making people unable to stop. All the way down. Soon, Suliang arrived before the peak. After a pause, Suliang decisively avoided the peak. It would be rude to continue the massage. However, at this time, Yuji, who had been enjoying herself with her eyes slightly closed, suddenly opened her eyes and asked, "Why don't you continue? I think this is very inappropriate." Suliang thought for a moment and said seriously, "Is there anything inappropriate?" Yuji took Suliang's collar and brought him to her. "Humph, you have already measured it yourself, and it's not your hands. Why, do you think it's inappropriate now?" Hiss. Suliang immediately took a breath of air. "All I can say is that she is worthy of being the queen of the abyss." As soon as she opened her mouth, even she didn't know how to refute her. After all, although she was forced to do so in the first place, what Yuji said was indeed the truth. Okay, I won't suffer anyway. If you insist, it's up to you." Suliang shrugged helplessly. Since others insisted, what else could he refuse? Then, Suliang returned again and started climbing the peak directly. Moment. The softness and elasticity are within your control. Well. Yuji snorted softly and narrowed her eyes full of haze. After a long time, Yuji persisted and ordered not to leave. Suliang finally advanced the massage progress a lot. Be reasonable. Although he didn't suffer a loss, it still tested Suliang's willpower, right? Many times, Suliang almost couldn't hold on anymore. Volume 1 Chapter 494 The Past Reappears, 9 Realms of the Abyss. After all, Yuji is so proud that even her master may not be able to compare with her. Only 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen can fight. He slowly placed Yuji, who could no longer open her eyes, on the throne. Suliang found a low stool, sat in front of her, and held her petite and delicate feet in his arms. Petite and exquisite, crystal clear, it's like a work of art. If you hold it in your hand and play with it, you won't want to put it down. Obviously, according to the order, it shouldn't be here. Yuji reluctantly raised her head and glanced at Suliang, and immediately pouted, a little coquettishly, Are you too cunning? Really, I just know how to make fun of others. Layers should not inquire about massages. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 549. Suliang retorted without any fear. Immediately, he went about his own massage. Ah! Yuji screamed in surprise, her pretty face flushed, and her beautiful eyes instantly became misty. After a long time, Suliang finally ended his massage. Immediately. But when Yuji still had no strength, she came directly to the throne. He held Princess Yuji in his arms and sat on the throne. Suliang asked with a smile, "Are you satisfied with this massage? What do you want to exchange for a piece of information?" Yuji stared at Suliang with her beautiful eyes. "You have been teasing me for so long, do you really think you can get any benefits from me? To be honest, I'm working hard to give massages." Suliang said seriously, "Why can't you get the information you want?" Hear this. Really? Yuji suddenly laughed and said, "Forget it, it's up to you. Anyway, all I want is for you to be by my side. It's just some information. As long as you are happy and satisfied, what can't I give you? Only, after you get the information you want, you must continue to accompany me. You can't leave secretly by yourself, you hear me? What information do you want to know?" Yuji looked at Suliang with interest. "Can you tell me the current situation in the abyss?" Suliang asked curiously, but this question was actually quite cunning. The so-called abyss situation covers a wide range. Approximately how many abyss creatures exist in the area, and how many real top masters there are among them. Even including why abyss keeps attacking the present world, fighting to the death. These are all included in the abyss. If Yuji didn't notice this, she really had to answer Suliang's words. I'm afraid Suliang only needs to ask this question before he can stop. After all, through one question, you know everything you need to know, so why continue to sacrifice yourself? However, as the Queen of the Abyss, Yuji certainly has a lot to offer in terms of IQ. Oh, this question has a trap. Yuji looked at Suliang with a smile, "Or do you hate being with me that much? You would rather use such a trap to deceive me than stay with me for a little longer." While talking, Yuji's pretty face still had an unstoppable smile, but her voice was full of resentment. For a while, it's impossible to tell whether she cares or not. However, don't know why. Suliang immediately felt that his problem might really make Yuji unhappy. After a moment of silence, Suliang shook his head and sighed, "Forget it, just tell me what you can say. To be honest, I want to know too much about the abyss. For a moment, I don't even know what to ask." As soon as these words came out, Yuji's beautiful eyes suddenly shone with light. "Are you explaining to me, or are you trying to coax me? That's what you think?" Suliang helplessly spread his hands, trying to hide his true thoughts. But this method is still a bit shallow for Yuji. In an instant, Yuji saw through Suliang's thoughts. A heartfelt smile appeared on her pretty face. "Let me think about it. In fact, I can tell you everything you want to know. As long as you can always stay with me. Then thank you very much." Suliang said helplessly. Why couldn't he be cruel in front of her? It's really a bit outrageous. After thinking for a while, Yuji said, "Why don't I tell you the general situation in the abyss first? The entire abyss is actually divided into 9 parts. And these 9 parts, taken together, are called the 9 realms of the abyss." 9 realms of the abyss. Suliang was stunned for a moment, then immediately frowned. Turn out to be. Isn't the abyss that I think of really a whole area? Have to say. This information, although only the most superficial, allowed Suliang to know the situation in the abyss. But it's also very useful. Then are you in charge of all 9 regions alone, or? Suliang asked curiously. However, this time, Yuji smiled and shook her head. "No, good children can't be greedy. The massage you just gave was only enough to get you one problem, and I already told you about this problem. If you want to know more, keep going. Hear this." Suliang frowned and thought for a moment, then nodded. From Yuji's attitude, Suliang could not deduce the real answer to the question he wanted to ask. That being the case, can we just continue? Well, we have to continue sooner or later anyway, it's just earlier and later. What shall we do next? Suliang asked, already impatient. After all, let her have fun earlier, so that she can go back earlier. Why don't we go out for a walk? Yuji blinked her beautiful eyes and said to Suliang. What kind of trick is this? Obviously, the 2 times he arrived here before, he was taken by Yuji with him and never left for a moment. Why did she want to go out for a walk this time? But this would be good for Suliang. There is no reason not to agree. Then, Suliang nodded, okay, tell me, where to go. But, I want to ask, can I really survive in the environment in the abyss? Do you want to get information from me again? Yuji looked at Suliang with a half smile. But she actually understood what Suliang was thinking, and it was just a joke. Don't worry, it'll be no problem. What's more, the place I take you to is not an abyss. Say it. Yuji took Suliang's hand, pushed open the palace door, and walked out. This moment, looking at the scenery outside, Suliang was stunned. What happened? Why is this place completely different from the abyss I imagined? In Suliang's imagination, the abyss should be dark, disorderly, and full of twisted and chaotic places. But now, Volume 1 Chapter 495, put an end to evil and the road to becoming emperor. What appeared in front of Suliang's eyes was bright sunshine. Not only that, not far in front of him was a lively town. The people coming and going in the town are obviously human figures. Don't think too much, what is shown here is not the scene of the abyss. As if she knew what Suliang's doubts were, Yuji shook her head and walked forward with Suliang. Don't know why. Walking in the streets of this town, Suliang always felt that this place felt inexplicably familiar. As if you have been here before, or even lived here for a long time. Only, my villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 550. But he couldn't remember where he had seen it. Does it feel familiar? Yuji walked beside Suliang, looked at Suliang's confused look, and asked with a smile. Really? Suliang nodded, not hiding anything. Look back. Yuji turned around and pointed to the back, where the 2 of them had just walked out, her eyes full of nostalgia. Subconsciously, Suliang looked back, but then he was stunned. I saw. The palace gate they walked out of just now turned into the gate of a mansion here. Whether it was the plaque on the mansion or the appearance of the mansion, Suliang felt very familiar. It turns out this is here. Suliang murmured softly. He had indeed seen this place, but that was in a simulation. This is the place where the boy and the girl live. After the 2 got married, they lived in this mansion. That is to say, Yuji actually restored everything from that time to this place? Is it an illusion? After all, changing the environment of a small area of the abyss is so sensational that even the Queen of the Abyss may not be able to do it. Turn the scenes of your past life into illusions and keep them with you. For some reason, Suliang felt very complicated at this moment. Yuji looked at Suliang's reaction and smiled unconsciously. There is not much to say. Yuji took Suliang's hand and said, let's go, will you go shopping with me? Okay, let's go shopping together. Suliang nodded and agreed. Perhaps, she has been looking forward to the scene for a long time. How could you refuse her? Walking on the street with Yuji. Suliang looked at the pedestrians around him curiously and couldn't help but sigh. Although it is an illusion, the degree of reality of this illusion is really incredible. Even Suliang found it difficult to see any flaws for a while. The food on the surrounding stalls exudes a burst of fragrance, which makes people want to buy it. Occasionally he would meet passers-by, and they would even quarrel with Suliang. Have to say, this kind of illusion is much more sophisticated than Qin Wanyu's. Even Suliang would have a hard time cracking it if he didn't use the emperor's double eyes. At this time, Suliang and Yuji suddenly passed by a jewelry store. Let's go take a look inside. Yuji pointed at Suliang and said with a smile. Sure. Suliang nodded non-committally. Anyway, I am here to accompany Yuji today, and she can do whatever she wants. And after getting Suliang's consent, Yuji was obviously very happy. She took Suliang's hand and walked in together. What do you two want? The store owner immediately came over and said to Suliang, this young master's wife is extremely beautiful. If she uses my jewelry, she will definitely add a bit more temperament. His words made Yuji blush, but she didn't refute at all. Instead, he hugged Suliang's arm very naturally. I want it, buy it for me. Well, which one do you like? Suliang had a smile on his face. For some reason, even he didn't mean to refute the store just now. Let me see, this is it. Yuji chose for a moment and took her fancy on a bracelet. Okay, take this. Suliang nodded, but when he turned his head occasionally, he was stunned. There was a hairpin lying on the counter. Whether it's the style or the big smile, it seems to be exactly the same as the one he brought back from the Fuxi abyss. Suliang took a deep look at Yuji and avoided her. He quietly said to the shopkeeper, wrap this one too. However, but he didn't see the hint of smile on the corner of Yuji's mouth. After walking out of the store, Yuji kept laughing and looked very happy. If you have any questions, you can ask them and I will tell you. Is this enough? This requirement adjustment is really dynamic. Suliang was stunned for a moment, then thought for a moment and asked, I still have the same question, what is the situation in these 9 regions? Each of the 9 realms of the abyss is a king. These 9 kings of the abyss are collectively called the 9 kings of the abyss. Yuji clasped her hands behind her back and answered with a smile, and each domain is actually an independent existence. They seem to be getting along well, but they are falling apart. Hearing this, Suliang's eyes lit up. It turns out that the abyss is even more chaotic than it appears. In this case, wouldn't it be much easier to break through the abyss? After thinking for a while, Suliang asked again, what about you? This is the next question. Yuji smiled and did not answer. Instead, she held Suliang's hand and said, let's go on playing. Fine. Suliang sighed helplessly, and every time it ended at the place he was most interested in. The two walked along, and soon they were out of the city. This illusion is really outrageous. Have you even built places outside the city? However, when Suliang looked back, he felt enlightened. Everything in the city behind him turned into a fog. Obviously, that was the exit of this illusion. The so-called Great Illusion just meant that the two of them returned to the entrance and then changed the scenery in front of them. This principle is quite acceptable. Soon, the two of them walked along and came to a towering tree. Because of the cover of the ancient trees, this place was surprisingly cool under the scorching sun. Look up. Suliang could still see the countless small cards tied to the tree. What seems to be written all over it? Have you ever seen this scene? Suliang thought for a moment and suddenly felt enlightened. This is also a scene in a fantasy, right? That famous place where the boy and the girl went together to make a wish? Did Yuji bring her here to make a wish? Really? Next moment, Yuji took out the banknotes and handed one to Suliang. Here, make a wish. Write it on it and I'll tie it on. Yuji said with a smile, started to write something on the paper, and then hung it on the tree, clasped her hands together, and closed her eyes to make a wish. See this. The same is true for Suliang. After making a wish, he hesitated, took out the hairpin, and gently put it on Yuji's head. "This is for you." Yuji blushed and lowered her head shyly. Both she and Suliang knew exactly what this hairpin meant. But both of them also knew that Suliang was actually not at this point yet. After Suliang retreated, Yuji touched the hairpin on her head and smiled happily. In fact, in the entire illusion, only this hairpin is real. "I'm very happy, thank you." Yuji smiled and hugged Suliang's arm. "Let me answer your last question. Among the 9 kings of the abyss, I am just one of them. And the place I'm guarding is actually the border. In other words, if the other 8 kings want to go to the present world, they need to pass through me and get my permission. Hear this?" Suliang frowned, seeming to realize something. And just then, the illusions around the two of them disappeared, replaced by countless abyssal creatures, waiting for Yuji's dispatch. Compared with the abyssal creatures here, the ones in this world are just like a drop in the bucket, not worth mentioning.